Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, coming up on the second anniversary of us jumping to a new website and starting to work with some fun new people. So it's an exciting time. It's a lot of fun stuff going on, and camp season starting. So this is supposed to be the quiet time of year for college football, and it's like, I think I'm starting to figure out that there is no quiet time of year for college football.
No, and that's the fun part of it, or one of the fun parts of it. The games are also good, but yeah, it's coming up on the 2-year anniversary, which I believe is June 4th. So if just a reminder out there, a heads up to folks, if you are an annual subscriber and you started on June 4th, the resubscription will begin then as well. So just be aware and give you a heads up on that so that it doesn't catch you off guard. And what a 2 years it's been, Tom.
What a 2 years it's been. A lot of fun, a lot of changes, a lot of I would call the last 2 years eventful. Would you say anything has changed since the summer of 2020? I mean, some things maybe in the world.
I mean, if you give me a chance to think about it and jot some things down, I can maybe come up with a couple. But yes, it has been a unique time to cover athletics for sure. And Tom, you were on hand covering athletics on Wednesday at Ohio State's one-day camp. You and Mark Givler and Kevin Newton. I was back at home base, making sure everything ran smoothly in terms of my lunch, in terms of my breakfast, and in terms of my random chair nap. And I'll let you know, everything went swimmingly.
I'm so glad to hear it. Yes, you did text the three of us and said, hey, would it be helpful if I was there? And it was like we were all in a race to say, no, please, no. No. Okay, what Tony does on these days, we've sort of worked out a little system where we're all there, and Kevin's shooting video, and Mark's shooting video, and I'm shooting photos, and Mark's talking to people, and Kevin's interviewing people. And what Tony does on those days is he's at home, and I will just email him pictures of, like, here's 10 pictures of Tyler Atkinson. Go ahead and throw them on the board or put them on Twitter, whatever you want to do. Just like, here's a data dump of all the stuff that I'm shooting, because we're out there running around, and you've got sort of a limited window. So Tony is the one kind of making the trains run on time back at home base, and also apparently taking chair naps.
Tom was like, here is a ball of yarn. Go play with it.
Here's a ball. Would you like to bounce it?
Exactly. So yeah, you were there. I think Ohio State offered 7 players from the camp. And there's always this aura or around players offered at camp. The camp offers, they have their own labels, and it's not a stigma. It's one of those things where these are players performing essentially for offers, basically, and coaches are there to look for players to offer. So it's an opportunity to prove yourself, to impress coaches enough to land that offer. And it's really it's an interesting just exercise in guys performing at their best when they absolutely have to, other guys not, and then getting some feedback on this is what we need you to work on, because this is not the only camp. There's going to be 6 more, I think, through the rest of June. And so there will be other opportunities, but for the guys who lit it up, there were 7 offers. And I think the one I want to start with first, Tom, is quarterback Austin Novosad, who is currently committed to Baylor, but performed well enough on Wednesday to get that offer. And we know Ohio State wanted to take a quarterback in 2023. All of the top guys are out of the picture at this point. What I really like about this one, Tom, is that Ohio State was looking at 2 quarterbacks yesterday, in Austin Novosad and
Jax Leatherwood.
I was looking for his name there. Jax Leatherwood. And they competed against each other basically for an offer.
Yeah, and those guys were, if you've never been to one of these camps, and I would assume most people have not, there are essentially 2 camps going on at the same time. One is the kids who are just from local high schools or whatever, and they want to come and they want to work at get a chance to see the indoor at Ohio State and work with Ohio State staffers and run through some drills and, maybe go back home with some new stuff to work on and, a fancy new t-shirt. And that's about 90 or so % of the campers there. The other 10%, there is one group of defensive linemen who is working with Larry Johnson, and there's 5 groups who are not. And there's one group of cornerbacks or safeties who are working with Jim Knowles, and then the other ones are not, or linebackers are working with Jim Knowles, or whatever it is. And those are they're kind of two separate worlds almost happening at the same time there. And we went out to the field in the afternoon when the skill guys were there looking for the quarterbacks, Jackson Leatherwood and Austin Novosad, and they weren't out there with the quarterbacks. And it was like, that's weird. Hey, I don't see Corey Dennis. Hey, I don't see Ryan Day. And I turned to Kevin and I said, want to bet they're on the indoor? And you went inside and, hey, there's Corey Dennis and Ryan Day working just with those 2 guys on the indoor field, having them go through a progression of throws, do some drills that we've seen them do at practices before. One of them was the 1-inch drill, which I know we've talked about on this show before, but they just set up a big net, basically, like a big square net, maybe 8 feet on each side. And the quarterbacks have to throw the ball, from 25 or so yards away. And the goal is to throw it 1 inch over the net because the net represents a defender and, the tips of a defender's fingertips. And can you throw the ball just over that so you're not arcing the ball, way high? You're just trying to get it just over where that defender was and hit the receiver standing behind it. And that's a drill we've seen them work a long time, many, many, many times over the years since Ryan Day has gotten there. And I always feel like that might be one of the best ways to know, to really see who Ryan Day is going to like. Generally, the person who does better in that drill is the one that's going to get the offer. And, he doesn't want you to be safe on that. He wants you to just do it. There's a reason it's the 1-inch drill and not the 18 to 24 inches drill. Like, he wants it right above there. And Austin Novosad's second pass hit the top of it, but just skimmed the top of it enough that it skipped off and kept going forward. And I was like, I think that's it. I think that's the guy who he's gonna want. And they ran a bunch of other drills, but as soon as I saw that, it was like, that seems like a guy Ryan Day is gonna want, because you're not playing it safe. You're being sort of cautiously aggressive, maybe. And that was the moment that it was like, okay, I think if he's gonna offer one of these 2 guys, that's the guy he's gonna offer. We were not necessarily expecting him to plunk down an offer on day 1 because there's a bunch more camps coming and they have other quarterbacks they could be bringing in later in the month. Seems like maybe Ryan Day has found his guy.
Yeah, the number 17 quarterback nationally, number 308th player overall, as I said, committed to Baylor from Dripping Springs, Texas. So he's a Texas kid. 3,399 yards passing last year, 40 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. And it's one way to create competition. It's like you against you, and you then that's one way to see who can perform and step up as a quarterback needs to. And it was interesting looking at some of your photos from the event where Ryan Day is so locked in on the quarterback. Like, the ball is gone. He's watching the release, the feet, the hips, the shoulder, all of that. Like, he is just zeroed in on there. He doesn't care he can catch up with the ball later. Like, he's looking at the player at that point and just really locked in. And I think it was Alex talked to almost all of these guys. Jax Leatherwood told him that Day wants to see an improvement in his footwork. And he said, you improve the footwork and that'll take your game to another level. I am interested to see where the rankings go for Austin Novosad, because this is a legitimate, not that Baylor isn't, but Ryan Day offers a quarterback, and I think people will take notice and we'll see what happens there. Now, in terms of a commit watch, this is a guy committed to Baylor from Texas, paid his own dime to come to an Ohio State camp to try and earn an offer. So that sets off all of the alarm bells that if he gets that offer, he's eventually going to be a Buckeye. And I think right now that would be the betting favorite. One of the things I said on the message board was that this is also like when comedians would go on Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and they do their set and they're going to be huge for that. But then if you call them over to the couch, that was going to make them even bigger. And when Ryan Day offers a quarterback, that's kind of like him saying, come on over, come sit down, let's talk. And now the entire nation knows you. And so it may not just become a Baylor versus Ohio State battle. It could become a Baylor versus Ohio State versus everybody else that needs a quarterback, because there are only a handful in 2023.
Oh, you are correct, sir. Yes. Don't get to use my Ed McMahon nearly as much as I used to. Not quite as timely as it used to, but thankfully your references are no more current than mine. So this is why this all works. See,
Plus, I'm rarely correct.
Also, so 2 reasons, and I don't get to use that one very often. It's interesting with Austin Novosad because you would assume if you're coming up on your own dime, you're already committed to Baylor. You've got a P5 commitment, so you can go play in the Big 12 and they will sling the ball around a good bit, and you're playing relatively close to home. Dripping Springs is kind of like a western suburb of Austin, so it's not terribly, terribly far from Waco. And, you would think that would mean like that's probably being a quarterback at Baylor is probably a pretty good life. If you're coming to Ohio State on your own dime after being committed to Baylor, that tells me you would really like to be an Ohio State quarterback. You are very, very interested in being an Ohio State quarterback. Now you have the opportunity to do it. You mentioned Alex talking to Austin Novosad after the visit. And, I think he's going to go home, it sounds like, and, take a couple days and let the shine of the visit kind of wear off. So, don't necessarily expect a commitment in the next 15 minutes or anything. But I think I would be fairly surprised if he didn't end up committing. Because, if you want to come to Ohio State, unless he goes and camps at Alabama or Penn State or USC or whatever other program you want to plug in there, unless he goes and does that, I would be very surprised if he did not end up at Ohio State. It feels like if you're coming up here, this is probably where you want to be. And, not necessarily on commitment watch in the next 2 days, but if he committed by the end of the weekend, I wouldn't be completely shocked either.
I know there are people saying, well, why? It would be an easier path to the field at Baylor than it is at Ohio State. But one path to the field at Ohio State is you spend a couple years at Ohio State and you transfer out and you go start somewhere. And you get that, you get the chance to start, but also you get to be with Ryan Day and learn. And I'm looking at, do you know the last Baylor quarterback to be drafted, Tom? And I'll let you know, it was in 2015. So that'll help you out. Was
it Robert Griffin III, or was there someone after him?
Bryce Petty.
Okay, Bryce Petty. Oh yeah, Bryce Petty after
your New York Jets.
No, that you're confusing me with Alex. They are definitely not my New York Jets. Because that was that the year that they played Michigan State in the Cotton Bowl, that in like the 42-41 game? Was that? Oh, that was a year or two after that. Okay, yeah, that was. Okay. Oh yeah, so that was the year after 2014, and then the 2015 draft. So there you go. It's not that's if you can come play for Ryan Day. Ryan Day's track record at this point is Ryan Day's quarterbacks. I don't know how much credit you want to give him for Joe Burrow. We had Joe Burrow for a year. So, and Joe Burrow, whatever credit you want to give him for Joe Burrow, there's plenty of credit to go around there. So, you can put him on the list. Dwayne Haskins, first round pick. Justin Fields, first round pick. CJ Stroud, almost certainly a first round pick next year. And then, Jack Miller, when he left, he didn't go play for Portland State or Northern Iowa. He is in the running to be the starting quarterback at Florida, which is rather famously not a terrible football program. So, you have, the guys who are the success stories at Ohio State are tremendous success stories. And the guys who leave Ohio State, a lot of them end up being pretty successful as well, or going to places where it's like, now you've got to finish the drill, but you've got, you're going to a place where you have the opportunity to be pretty successful as well. And, the other names are Tate Martell, who there may have been some, off-field stuff going on that he wasn't, there may have been other reasons other than Ryan Day that Tate Martell didn't work out. Let's leave it at that. And Matthew Baldwin, who had kind of career-ending knee stuff going on because he went down to TCU and never played a snap down there because of injuries. So, if you play for Ryan Day, it seems like there's a pretty good chance things are going to work out okay for you moving forward. So, we'll see, but yeah, I think I would say better than 50-50 that Austin Novosad is in that 2023 Ohio State class, say by the end of the month.
Yeah, RG3, the second most recent in 2012. Cody Carlson, the third most recent back in 1987.
The backup for the Houston Oilers in Tecmo Super Bowl.
Yes, indeed he was. Now, I preferred to keep Warren Moon in there so that I could throw for my 10,000 yards. I didn't need Cody Carlson in there. Not that he couldn't have also thrown for at least 8,000, but I'm not going to bench Warren Moon in the greatest offense. And you know what? I even had Lorenzo White rush for 1,000 yards just because I knew I could. So that's how good I was. All right.
Now you're just showing off. Anyone could put up 10,000 yards with Warren Moon, but if you're rushing for 1,000 yards on top of that, now you're just showing off.
I am. And so that's the quarterback offer, and we both expect him to eventually be part of this class and then close up the quarterback recruiting for Ohio State in 2023. Let's move to Jalen Thompson, a defensive end edge rusher from Cass Tech in Detroit, number 30 defensive line prospect in the nation, number 212 overall, 6'3", 245. I think he told Alex they're looking at him in a hybrid linebacker defensive end, aka the Jack or the Leo. Real legit Power 5 offers from the Michigan schools, from the Midwest schools. He has an offer from Georgia, but I don't think it's a capital OFFER offer. It's, come on down. We'll see if we really want you. But you got to see him firsthand yesterday. I mean, facially, he looks a lot like JT Barrett. I'm going to say that. Like he resembles JT Barrett, but also much bigger and, not much bigger, a little bit bigger, but did well enough to convince Larry Johnson that he's a player that he'd like to coach.
Yeah, Alex did a really nice job putting together a list of a bunch of guys who were sort of confirmed to be coming. But then there's always lists, and I had gone through that whole list and looked, okay, here's some names to know, faces to know, all that kind of stuff. But there's always guys who are local or local-ish who can just sort of pop down on, not necessarily spur of the moment, but you don't need to have a lot of planning to come if you're Will Smith Jr. and coming down from Dublin. Like, you can just sort of pop down and you don't need to make hotel reservations or flight reservations and that kind of stuff. I don't think Jalen Thompson was on that initial list from Alex, because he was not a name that I had seen or I had written down. But as they're going through warm-ups, sometimes you're looking, as I said, there's all sorts of players. There are small school Ohio kids who, are going to top out as the backup on a D5 defensive line in some small Ohio town. And then you've got guys who are, potential future 5-stars. So you've got guys all over the spectrum. And we only had a couple names for the defensive line, and we were looking at those guys. And then I saw this guy wearing it was like an Under Armour kind of camp shirt, and it had 44 on the front. And I turned to Kevin Noon and I said, I don't know who that is, but that's somebody. It's just like, he is, I mean, how they, Tony, how the kids say, maybe I'm just built different. Like, you look at the, group of defensive linemen, it was like, nope, that kid is quite literally built different than everyone else. Like, just very obviously incredibly athletic, twitched up. You could just tell immediately, like, okay, this is someone that I don't know who it is yet, but I'm going to know who this is by the end of the day. By the end of the day, that was Jalen Thompson, and he had earned an offer from Ohio State. He was, he's, as I said, working in that group with Larry Johnson, and he's in there with Will Smith. He's in there with, what's his name from Georgia, the 2026, who now I'm blanking on.
Tyler Atkinson,
thank you. He's in there with a group of a bunch of really talented guys, and guys who are all, probably everyone in that group is going to have some kind of an FBS offer by the time the whole cycle is all said and done. And he was someone who was like, okay, yep, that's a dude. And he, sometimes you'll watch these camps and kind of go, yeah, I mean, I guess maybe I could see why he got an offer. He was someone where I was like, yep, I get it. I watched the defensive line a whole lot because there was not a ton of great offensive line talent. So I spent a lot of time watching the defensive line Wednesday morning. Was like, yep, that's a guy who probably needs to get an offer. And he did.
Yeah, and he spoke with Alex afterwards and said, the dreaded dream school. He called Ohio State his dream school, and also that he's going to have to reevaluate where things are right now with his recruitment. And clearly it was the two sides were impressed by each other, and we might see some movement there. Let's go to Jermaine Matthews, Winton Woods, 2023, listed as an athlete. We're going to call him a cornerback here because he was offered. Ran a 4.35, was part of the defensive backs working out, and has offers from like Cincinnati, Kentucky, Boston College, Pitt. Now, as Ohio State is offering these guys, specifically like Jermaine Matthews, like all of these schools have to be like, I don't want him going to the Ohio State camp. We don't need Ohio State getting involved, because these are, I think this is the kind of guy that those schools get, and then they turn into NFL players and they become all conference. And it's how does Cincinnati have a first round cornerback and the Thorpe Award winner? And it's guys like this. And so he did well enough, and Ohio State needs corners, and they're probably going to miss out on some of these top guys from Florida and around the nation, Florida, Texas. And so you need to get the best guys in Ohio in that case. And if you've got one that's good enough to play at Ohio State, and clearly they liked what they saw from him enough yesterday, and I don't know how quickly this one will be over, but when Ohio State goes after a 3-star Ohioan, like, they don't stay 3 stars forever. Generally they'll also get the bump, but also it's like, okay, come on in. This is the invitation. Jump on in.
Yeah, and I think people may look at the 3-star rating and go, oh, this is a reach. Why would you reach so early, this early in the cycle? And allow me to assure you that Tim Walton and Perry Eliano and Jim Knowles and eventually Ryan Day all had eyes on Jermaine Matthews for quite a while on Wednesday. They were working out with Knowles and Walton and Perry Eliano all there. Knowles was literally out on the field, like running these guys back and forth, up and down the field, and run this way, and now back up, now run past me, and then flip, and then backpedal. And so, I mean, he is getting a firsthand look at all of these guys. And I mean, this was another very talented group. I think there were 5 different guys in that group who were, going to be Power 5 offer kind of guys. And I mean, Matthews was someone who really kind of stood out. Even in that group, he was maybe the one who stood out the most. He was Ryan Day came over at one point, and it was like, if Ryan Day is coming, when Ryan Day is working with the quarterbacks, Ryan Day is working with the quarterbacks. If Ryan Day is over looking at the defensive backs, that was another one where I think I was standing next to our buddy Mick Walker and turned to him. I said, so when Ryan Day comes over, feels like an offer is probably coming. Like, this is the final seal of approval on someone that, Jim Knowles is in the toy aisle at Toys R Us and saying, Mom, can I get this? And Mom has to give the thumbs up. That is Ryan Day coming over to say, yes, okay. You can yes, you can make this offer. I approve this offer. I don't think there's a reason to question based on, you look at him. He's a well-built kid. Was very athletic, looked pretty fluid. From Winton Woods High School, same program as mine, Williams. So, Ohio State has a relationship there. Ohio State has probably sort of pre-vetted him in terms of, off field and character and all that kind of stuff. And like, okay, this is the kind of guy we want in the program. And, if you've seen him do it athletically and seen him do it on the field in what was not great conditions, it was pretty darn hot on Wednesday on that turf. That I think is, and to your point with like Cincinnati and Kentucky and BC, like those are the kind of programs like this was like the Sauce Gardner profile when Sauce Gardner signed with UC. Like a 3-star, he was out of Detroit, but like a 3-star, like why would you offer, why would Ohio State offer this kid? I'm not saying he's going to turn into Sauce Gardner, but if you have the measurables and you have, you're running a 4.35 and you look pretty fluid out there, and the coaches like what they see, that okay, like I'm sold.
Yeah, Perry Eliano, former Bearcats coach, probably also sold in that group. I also want to say some of the photos that you took of Jim Knowles, as he's just watching all of these people, all of these prospects, and he's got one where he's just like biting on a pen and just smiling. And I posted it in the forum and I said, this is the look that you give when you're told that the guys that you're seeing that you would normally offer aren't good enough to be offered by Ohio State. So it's like you now are shopping, as we said before, in a different level of store, and you're like, oh, okay, all right. So you have better products coming in, and just it's just a different level that he's on now, and getting to see like the realization of what now you are living in. And it was just interesting because he's got a couple of those where he's just there's a little bit of a wry smile on his face where he's very excited to be where he is right now. It would appear. So those are the 2023 guys that were offered. Austin Novosad, Jalen Thompson, Jermaine Matthews. 4 2024 offers went out. Let's start with Elias Rudolph, edge rusher from Cincinnati Taft. Number 17 edge player in the class, number 204 overall, number 4 player in Ohio. 6'4", 220, has offers from Clemson, Pitt, Michigan, Tennessee, among others, and is still filling out. And when you look at him, he probably looks like, if you stood him next to Marvin Harrison, I don't know that there's much of a difference. I wouldn't be surprised if Marvin Harrison looks bigger than he does, frankly, because, he's still heading into his sophomore or junior year of high school. So there's still, he's still got some growing to do, but he was one of the guys that just seemed to be pretty explosive from the reviews.
Yeah, he was in that same group with all the other guys working with Larry Johnson in the morning. And, another guy who just, very quick, pretty explosive. You're right. He looks small, and you're working with some of those guys are defensive tackles. So you're going to look really small if you're 220 pounds working in a group with defensive tackles and guys, a lot of them in that 240, 250 at least range, and if not bigger. So he did look small, but to your point, that's 2 years away. He's from being a college player. And, you look at like someone like Javonte Jean-Baptiste, when he came to Ohio State, I think he was more like 210. So already Elias Rudolph is 10 pounds heavier than that, and he's still got 2 more years to potentially put another 5-10 pounds on each year. And then you show up and all of a sudden it's like, okay, you got some work to do with Coach Mick, but you're not an automatic like red shirt, and then we'll see you in like 18 to 24 months once you've put on the weight you need to put on. So he is from the same high school as Adolphus Washington, Taft High School down in Cincinnati. So he was getting asked about Adolphus Washington. Are you trying to be, trying to be a better player than Adolphus Washington? Is he someone people are talking about down there? And he basically said, like, yeah, I'm kind of my own player. Like, you look at Adolphus Washington next to him, and it's like, no, they both play defensive line, but that's kind of about where the comps probably end. So yeah, he was, I think he was excited to get an offer. I was there as part of a group of people talking to him after the morning session before he had gotten an offer. But I think he was very excited to be there, and this is something that you can probably just cut and paste on the next couple guys we're going to be talking about too. But if you were an in-state player getting an offer 18 months out from your signing day, they know they have to, that's an offer you have to follow through on. You can't pull that offer later. You can't, well, it wasn't really an offer. It was an in-state offer is an offer. And, he's someone who has Clemson, Pitt, Michigan, Tennessee offers. So, he's got, there's a little bit of validation from other places as well. But if you're going to offer someone in-state, you really have to follow through on it. And for them to do this far out, that tells me they are pretty sure that they like what they see there.
And I wonder, I'm sure he knows the name of Adolphus Washington, but when Ohio State was offering Adolphus Washington, Elias Rudolph was about 6 years old. And I'm sure we all have a little bit of pain hearing me say that, but since I thought of it, I also wanted to give other people that same pain. But yeah, as you said, these 2024 kids, these Ohioans that are getting offers, these are not reaches. These are, okay, we're ready. We will accept your commitment right now. And that's where they are. And the other guy, 2 more here from Ohio, Aaron Scott, a 3-star cornerback from Springfield, number 28 corner in the class, number 276 overall, number 7 player in Ohio, listed at 6'1". So you got to like the length that he has. Offers from Boston College, Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, Notre Dame, Tennessee. Was performing with a cast on his hand, or a brace on his hand, so it was basically one-handed. I think didn't have necessarily the best day, but the competitive nature that we talked about with the quarterbacks, and the example that I always use of Malcolm Jenkins when he was camping at Ohio State in 2004 or whenever, when he would cut in line after taking reps so that the coaches can continue to see him, because he wanted to go and he would match up with the best wide receivers because he wanted to prove himself. That is something that will check a box and it might check a couple of boxes on coaches. And so showing up and performing while not 100%, a lot of players will see, well, I got to be at my tip top shape. I got to be peak, because if I'm not, then they're going to see that. Instead, it's like they will be able to see him at his best at other points in the future. What they want to see is that competitive nature, and they got to see that, and they saw enough to go ahead and offer him. And this may have been coming anyway, but I think it's kind of, it's proof. It's a positive reinforcement. See what your competitive nature got you. It got you this offer, even if the offer was coming anyway.
Well, football's one of those games that, how often are football players playing at 100% peak health? I mean, maybe day one of fall camp, and then, then again, day one on the next fall camp. That it doesn't seem like you're, 100% healthy. This is, pitchers in baseball, like your arm feels good the first day of spring training, and then, well, we'll see again next year for the time my arm feels good on day one of spring training. That's just kind of life as a football player. You have to play with dings and scrapes, and he came in, and I mean, to your point, it would be very easy to view that as, I need to play my absolute best. I want to make sure everything is exactly right for me going into this, so I can show them what I am at the peak of my physical abilities. He has I don't know if it was a sprain or a tendon or something. It was like something in his wrist, it sounded like. And it was like one of those braces. It wasn't a cast. It was just kind of like one of those braces. And he went out and competed, and they made a couple different allowances. There was one drill where two guys were kind of backpedaling together and then had to fight for a ball. Basically, you're fighting the receiver for the ball, essentially. They didn't have him do that. They had him just do that by himself. Other than that, he did pretty much everything else. And I think he was defending in some of the one-on-one, winner-loser period at the end, where you have the really good wide receivers going up against the really good cornerbacks, and he was out there doing that and made some plays there. So, that's what they're looking for. There is a reason they do winner-loser period. It is because they want you to compete. That is a really core tenet of the program, and it's like win the rep, compete. That is something that they want to see. The ability, like, there are other people in the country that have whatever speed, whatever size of any of these guys on the field. They want to see the competition, and are you willing to put in the work, and are you willing to do it when you're not 100%? Because you're not going to be 100% for a lot of those games you play during your career. So, yeah, that I think probably showed a lot to those coaches, and he was, he held his own absolutely out there, even with just one good arm.
Yeah, the last Ohioan to earn an offer, Garrett Stover, a 2024 athlete, linebacker, safety, working with the defensive backs on Wednesday. But one of these guys, first of all, he's a Stover, cousin of Cade Stover. So no matter what position you think he's going to play, he is a Stover. There are 17 other positions he will end up playing before he finally ends up at defensive end and slot receiver. Somewhere in that range. He's a 4-star, number 38 athlete in the 2024 class, number 8 player in Ohio, 6'2", 195. So he's already decent sized safety, and comes from a program, Big Walnut, that is not, it's known. Offers from the usual suspects: Boston College, Iowa State, Michigan State, Duke in there as well. So, smart kid, but impressive that. I think anytime that you're offering Ohio kids or in-state kids, when you're able to offer this many in-state kids this early, that's a positive sign. Unless, Tom, it's just a reaction to not being able to pay for national recruits. I don't want to go there yet. But it's definitely a positive sign when especially the first day of camp, you're able to hand out this many offers.
That was one of the things that really kind of took me by surprise. Was this was not necessarily a group of players who came in saying, wow, this is the most loaded day of camp I've ever seen. They've got 6 more camps going, and there's a bunch of them coming up later where you're bringing in guys who are bigger names, 5-star national prospects, guys on official and unofficial visits. I mean, all that kind of stuff. And this was one where it was kind of, there's some interesting prospects here, but we'll see. And, normally you'd see 2 offers out of a day like that, something like that. To have 7 was like, that was really, really surprising to me. But, you ended up looking at the group of players on the field, and it's like, okay, I don't know that there was anyone that was like, wow, that was kind of a reach. That was too early. For them to offer an in-state player, I'll take all the in-state stuff that we talked about earlier, and then add in cousin literally plays for current team. Like, that's one that he's going to be on the top of the next potential commitment list, probably for, until he commits, I would say. He's someone who, you mentioned 6'2", 195. I was standing next to our buddy Mick Walker, watching this group work out, and when Garrett Stover came over to grab a drink of water, Mick asked him, like, you look like you've put on some weight since I saw you at the end of basketball season. And Stover said, I think he's put on like 6 to 8 pounds. And so add 6 to 8 pounds to the 195. Okay, you're a little north of 200 already. You got another couple of years of high school still to go. It doesn't feel like he's going to be working with the safeties when he gets to Ohio State. That conversation probably starts at linebacker, and then you sort of see where you go from there. But I think, they look at him and go, well, we can do something with him. So they, so they probably will get a chance to do that in a couple of years.
They're like, you had us at Stover. Like, that's all we needed. We saw that, and we're like, okay, you're in. I think the most surprising offer of the day goes to Fort Wayne, Indiana wide receiver Milan Graham. The reason it's so surprising is because it was his first FBS offer. He's one of these guys with like almost no recruiting site profile, no offers, essentially unknown, not so unknown that he didn't get an invite to the camp, and not so unknown that Brian Hartline didn't see him and say, okay, sure, let's go ahead and offer him. And the idea that Ohio State is in on some really good 2024 receivers, some of the best in the nation, the best in the nation, and to have some, I don't want to call it a random camp, but it's one of 7. There's this camp, and you see this kid from Indiana show up, and he does so well that you're like, you know what? We're not even going to slow play this one. Like, if you want to come aboard, you can. Now, I don't know if it's one of those, if it's truly a committable offer, but they got to treat the Indiana kids a lot like they treat the Ohio kids, where if the offer is extended, you might want to be careful that they might commit. And when he tweeted out that he had been offered, he tagged Austin Mack, a former Buckeye, also a Fort Wayne native, in the tweet as well. So this is one of those things where it's a much more recent thing than Adolphus Washington in terms of former Buckeyes, and it's surprising, and it will be interesting, another one to watch, where Milan Graham's ranking profile begins and where it ends, because I don't know what, if Brian Hartline offers you and you are unranked, do you start at 4-star? Like, okay, you are the last 4-star, and then go from there? Like, how does that work?
It feels like that's a stamp of approval that it has to carry a lot of weight, doesn't it? I mean, I think other schools will look at that. If you look at how quickly other schools follow suit after he reports an Ohio State offer, 2 weeks from now, he has 15, 20 offers. Would that surprise you at all? Because it wouldn't surprise me. So, that if other schools are viewing that as a stamp of approval that carries a lot of weight, I would not surprise me if the recruiting services followed suit there as well. He will, I'm not going to lie, this was not someone who was on my radar going into the day. And with the afternoon, there was a storm that passed through Columbus. So we lost about 45 minutes of time in the afternoon because of a lightning delay. So I don't know that I've watched this guy play at all. I may have seen him and not known who he was. But he was, because we were looking at the quarterbacks and we were looking at the tight ends, looking at the defensive backs. And, normally you get to every position group with, 45 minutes, an hour less in the afternoon. I really didn't pay much attention to the wide receivers at all until the winner-loser period. And then they're not announcing who these players are. So I probably have photos of him. I need to figure out who he is first before I throw any photos of him. I have a really cool photo of a guy making a one-handed catch. I sure hope that's him, because I'd like to use that a whole bunch more in the future. But yeah, he's for him to come in with essentially no profile whatsoever and earn an offer from Brian Hartline. Like, there are positions where you'll see a camp offer and people will very cynically kind of say, oh, well, that's because they struck out on all their their top targets. I don't think you can accuse Brian Hartline of striking out on his top targets at any point since ever. So this is one that I am very intrigued to see him. Intrigued to see him again. He will definitely be on my list the next time he's at camp, whenever that is.
Well, and some of the other 2024 receivers, Jeremiah Smith is the top receiver. Ohio State very much in on him from Florida. Another Fort Wayne kid, Bronte Johnson, Tate, as they call him, who was at the camp, but I believe unable to perform. Another Fort Wayne prospect, the number 5 receiver in the 2024 class per 24/7. So the fact that they like him so much, don't undersell that. I think you can, or don't oversell it, because it's significant. The last guy we're going to talk about, Tom, who already had an offer, as you mentioned before, 2026 defensive end edge player Tyler Atkinson from Loganville, Georgia, Grayson High School, listed right now at 6'3", 190. Offers from everybody, was essentially the star of the camp, or at least the most talked about player of the camp on Wednesday. Just again, he's he's going into his freshman year. He just finished his 8th grade year. And I'm thinking, when I was heading the day, I don't know if I've ever told this story before, Tom. It's not really a story, but the day before my freshman year, like the first day of freshman year, I had a dream, nightmare, really. Nerves, first day of school, first day of high school. The seniors, my dream was the seniors took me into the bathroom and crumpled crackers in my hair. And then I woke up. Like, now to imagine, like, that was me. This guy is out here performing and competing against high school juniors, and then dealing with media afterwards, which was like, as an 8th grader, how am I dealing with media? I'm like, you better ask me who my favorite Transformer is at that point. Like, what's your best Star Wars guy? Not that I was still playing with toys at that age, but I was doing more so that than what Tyler Atkinson is doing, for crying out loud. He impressed everybody.
Well, I think the first thing you do before you go talk to the media about your favorite Star Wars toys is get those crackers out of here, Gerdeman. Come on, be a professional. He was someone who, we talked earlier about Elias Rudolph, and Elias Rudolph was like, he looked a little small compared to some of the other guys, but he's got a couple of years to grow. Here's the thing about Tyler Atkinson. You looked at him next to all these guys who are 3 years older than him, 4 years older than him, and he didn't look out of place at all. Like, he just looked like, well, that's a rising senior. Okay. Like, he looks like about, not necessarily college ready yet, but he'll be college ready in a year. And it's like, oh, he just finished literally middle school. Okay, cool. So, what is he going to look like in 4 years when he is college ready? And the comp that popped into my head immediately was Chase Young. The first time we saw Chase Young in 2017, I think he was a summer enrollee. I don't think he was there that spring. But I remember, the first day of fall camp and looking at, like, oh, who's the redshirt junior who over there play with, with the defensive line? It's like, oh, that's Chase Young. He was in high school 3 months ago. Like, that doesn't seem right. That can't be right. He gives off kind of that same vibes. And then talking to him afterwards, you mentioned there was a group of 6-7 reporters around him, and he was answering questions. And, probably a little nervous, but handled that a lot better than I certainly would have at that age, or most people would at whatever age they are. And he ended up talking about Chase Young at the end. Chase Young sounds like he was his favorite player growing up. Which, boy, you want to feel old? Let me tell you, Chase Young was my favorite player growing up. Was just like, wow, I look at that, an AARP card just materialized in my hand. How about that? He talked all about Chase Young and how much he admired Chase Young, and patterned his game after Chase Young. And you can't, he is a Georgia kid. He's got a Georgia offer. He's got a Texas A&M offer. He's got an Ole Miss offer. So pulling him out of the South is still, I don't know if it's a long shot, but it's, this is not going to be an easy thing to pull him out of the South. But, if you are a real big Chase Young fan and you have the opportunity to go play at Ohio State where Chase Young played, and we'll see, there are perpetual Larry Johnson retirement rumors, and this guy's not showing up till 2026, so we'll see. But, are you going to, theoretically the opportunity to play for the guy that coached Chase Young at the place that Chase Young played. I mean, it's that in and of itself makes getting him up to Ohio State maybe a little more plausible than you would think otherwise with just, really, really highly touted player out of the state of Georgia.
Tom, how far away is 2026? That might be Dylan Raiola's last year at Ohio State.
That is horrifying. that is legitimately horrifying. And yes, I have a daughter who I believe is the high school class of 2028. So yes, I mean, and when I say it's horrifying, I mean legitimately, I am not kidding. That terrifies me. Yes, this is someone who is 2 grades ahead of my daughter, who I mean was just in kindergarten. It seems like 3 months ago. So yeah, I'm starting to think like the whole universe is a simulation and like time space bending and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, I'm starting to buy in on some of this stuff because I don't think that could possibly be right.
Thank you very much, Kua Tom. We got to get going, but anything else? What did you think of Will Smith? I thought it was good that Mark Givler reiterated that Will Smith is likely a defensive tackle at the next level, and I think he's already listed 260 or whatever. So I think it's good, and he continues to get bigger and stronger. What did you? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, he was someone who, he's someone who I think you've heard people sort of question why the offer so early for him. And, I had not seen him in person before. Mark had seen him in person before. I think Kevin had too. But, the consensus was basically, number one, he's gotten bigger, good weight gotten bigger, going to play inside, not on the edge, but also was impressive, was quick. He was, looked good running through drills with Larry Johnson. Larry Johnson seemed happy with, what he was doing. Larry Johnson is very, very enthusiastic at these camps. And if you do a drill wrong, Larry's not going to yell at you. He's not going to tell you you're terrible, but he's going to make you do it again. And it was like he was, attention to detail and all that kind of stuff. I was impressed with Will Smith on Wednesday. I think if anyone had concerns about the offer or questions about the offer, what I saw, I would not have, if he had not had an offer before yesterday and had gotten an offer based off it, I don't think I would have thought that's weird. Why would they do that? So, you're certainly in the conversation as a legitimate target. And again, this is someone who, much like Garrett Stover, this is someone with family ties to Ohio State from Central Ohio. They know if they offer him, he's going to take it. So you're going to be real sure. So if Larry Johnson is sure, you better have a real good reason if you are questioning what Larry Johnson is doing, because he's been doing this for a while and doing it at a reasonably high level.
And as the show has said in the past, there may be something to offering somebody who really wants to be a Buckeye. That may be the thing that keeps them around beyond the transfer portal, where it means more to them than your typical recruit. But Tom, I think that will do it. We've got some listener questions from some people sent some stuff in. We'll get to those in another show, kind of running out of time on this one. We will probably also maybe talk a little bit, maybe next time, about how the whiteout is not going to be at the Ohio State game. That's just terrible. It's just unfortunate, Tom. We could spend a couple of minutes on that down the road, but that will do it for this episode. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Reminder to check out the rest of the shows here on the network with Gives in the Bank, with Mark Givler and Bill Green, Alex's Around the Oval, and Kevin Noon's Big Me Kickoff, and of course Tom with the Morning Scoop. Tom, pretty big show tomorrow.
A really big show. If you see, we're just moving backwards in time. Yes, having the Beatles on for Friday morning. It should be pretty good. And if they can't make it, I'll have Tony on, and we're going to talk about some very interesting comments that Ryan Day and Gene Smith made in front of a group of Columbus businessmen on Thursday morning, talking about NIL and an aspect of NIL that I think maybe we hadn't necessarily, and most people I think hadn't been thinking about, because it goes beyond just the recruiting phase of a player's career.
Absolutely. So look forward to that on Friday. Thanks again, and we will talk to you guys later.